Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Eric here with Marked and Made, of course. Today what we're going to do is take a standard whiskey or rocks glass here and we're going to turn it into an engraved masterpiece using the xTool F2 Ultra UV. So what we're going to go over is the RA3, how to set it up, how to get it in the machine, how to set up your glass on the RA3, how to set up the settings to make it work inside of the laser for best results, and then we're going to watch it engrave and talk about it afterward. So stay tuned. Let's go ahead and get a glass set up and let's get into it. All right, so once you have your F2 Ultra out, let's do a quick first step, and that's let's get our rotary into the F2 Ultra UV. So this is the RA3. A couple things I really like about it are the adjustable right side, if you will. So you can adjust it from the chuck, the angle right here. It has the degrees down here on the bottom, so you can see exactly how far you're angled. I also like the new plug-in port location for the F2 Ultra UV. So on the F2 Ultra series machines, it's going to be inside. On any of the F2s, they're inside the machine here. Of the Ultras, the Ultra or the Ultra UV, that is. So you're going to plug this cord directly into the back of your machine in this port right here. You're going to make sure the other side is slid into the back of the base here, and of course you're going to have your RA3 configured into chuck mode. A couple updates that I really like about the chuck, so bringing one in here. These are easily movable and there are multiple attachments. You can have the other attachments on as well, but for the glasses we'll be using these ones and we'll be using them in the second spot. So these are easy to put in and out. You can grip from the inside or from the outside. With these, I mostly grip from the inside. If I'm gripping from the outside, I'll use the other attachments that split that up a little better. So, okay, now that we have our RA3 rotary inside of our machine, there are some holes in this that you can use to put this directly into your bed to hold it still. If you're doing a big batch job, I do recommend taking some of the screws out of like one of these little fixture things and putting it into the base here. However, it's not necessary for just one-off jobs. It does fit entirely within the laser, so if you need to, you can shut it all the way down. Just make sure the cord is tucked in when you do so. And yeah, overall, it's a really great rotary. The base here is adjustable. You can move it forward and back, you can loosen it, and then you can adjust from the bottom the angle to make sure that your item is level. So now that it's in here, we're actually going to go ahead and put our glass on the rotary. So to do that, we're going to take a glass and we're going to put it inside of, or put a chuck grip on it. So if we spin this one out a little bit to get that width on the top, and then once it's fully in there, you want to make sure that it's flush. So make sure that it's touching on all the sides on these tabs that hang out. And then you're just going to spin that out until it grips. And now we are flush and tight. All right, so I can let go of this. Hold on, that's not going anywhere. Okay, so now that that's on here, we just need to get this onto the rotary. Your rotary will only come with one chuck. However, I went ahead and bought an extra so that I can do quick changes like this. So once we have everything kind of in place for where we want to put things, if I were doing multiple of these glasses, I could just simply have the next one ready to go, pop the old one out, and pop the new one in. Now that we're inside of the rotary, we want to take our focus on the laser. Now, since this is glass, you can't just pop it in there and hit autofocus like you can on solid material. You're going to have to use something to get a focus. But before you even focus, what you want to do is make sure that your glass is level. So I have this tumbler level. If you don't have one, you can just use a regular bubble level as well. One like this. You can even pop it straight out of the case and use it just like it comes from xTool with the regular level. It doesn't matter really what you level with, as long as you're leveling from top to bottom. This glass is fairly straight, so I don't have to worry about anything crazy. I'm just going to adjust this down, set the level on there, and it's already level because I was messing with this earlier. But if it wasn't level, we would loosen this up, and then we would adjust the back wheel to change the height of this until we were perfectly level within that bubble, just like that. And then once you are, you can tighten this wheel at the front back down, and that's how you fix your angle. Again, loosen this front knob. That will allow you to adjust the angle of this. You can use the bottom wheel, the turn wheel on the back, to move these support wheels up and down to make sure that the cup itself is level. Now that we're level, again, we go back to taking focus. So it's important to know also that your rotary is in the center here. So these lights, as you know, are fixed, and we do want the highest point of the glass, if we can, and to be in the center of that beam. And we also want that to be in the middle of your laser, right? So, and we also want it to be straight. So try and keep it as straight as you can. If you have a little speed square, you can use that, or some type of angle bracket to make sure that it's completely square. But for this, it looks square enough, so I think we're gonna be just fine. To level this, or to go ahead and focus this, what I'm gonna do is put a piece of tape down. So when the tape comes down, you can see that the focus dots come into view. These are already on top of each other, but I'm gonna move it off just so you can kind of see them separate there. So now you'll see the red dot is further over than the blue dot. And then we're just gonna manually focus this until they're right on top of each other, and then we're focused. Once it's focused, you can take the tape off or you can leave it on. I'm gonna leave it on in this example and move the design out of the way of the tape using a template. So let's go ahead and just leave it on here to make it easy. We can shut this down or leave it open. I'm going to leave it open for the purpose of the video, but otherwise you could shut this down. If you're leaving it open, make sure you have appropriate eyewear. Of course, as always, laser safety comes first. And with all that being said, I think I covered pretty much everything that's important. The only other thing I will say is if your base isn't level, so let's say that your table isn't level, right? Mine's not perfectly level. So what you can do if it's severely out of whack, this is pretty much level, so I'm really not gonna see that much of an issue. But if you aren't completely level on your base, then you don't wanna be completely level on your tumbler. And I know that, or your glass, and I know that sounds weird, but the reason is that your laser head up here and your item need to be at the same angle so that they're parallel to each other. It doesn't matter that this is parallel with itself. So the level, since we're separated from here, can't really tell that it's not level with this. We're not leveling against the base, we're leveling against the world, essentially. So what you want to do is make sure that you're at the same angle. So if you were maybe setting like this on your base and your bubble is way off, then you'd want to try and match about where that bubble is. Since mine was setting about like right here, it was pretty close to level, and I'm not too worried about it. So with all that being said, let's jump into the software real quick. I'll take you through xTool Studio now that we've got our glass set up, and we'll go through setting up a quick design and the settings that we're going to use to engrave this glass today. All right, guys, so we're in xTool Studio, and we're essentially going to just engrave this Jack Daniels symbol onto this glass. So we've already done our measurement, we've already done our circumference measurement and our distance measurement and our height measurement on how big the tumbler is. So we already have that here. If you don't know how to make a template, I will share a link here in the top, or a pop-up that takes you to a video in my xTool P2S course on how to make and use templates within xTool Studio. So I've already got my template made here with the dimensions of the glass, and I've already got an image here that we're going to put on this template. So first thing we're going to do when we connect to our F2 Ultra UV is we're going to switch our processing mode to Chuck. Once Chuck is selected, you're going to notice this green line going down the middle of your screen. That is your axis line. Do not move this. It'll give you the option to if you hover on it. I don't recommend doing that. So what we're going to do now is just resize everything to fit on the tumbler. So we know, again, that our tumbler, or our glass, is roughly 256 millimeters in circumference and about 85 millimeters high. So we already have the template drawn over here, and it is not set to output. And then we have the image here that we're going to put in that. So if we just eyeball this, we can just drag it down, pop it in and center it, and then we're snapped. It doesn't really matter where it is in terms of this template, because again, we're not doing a full wrap or anything on this. We don't need to put something on the back side of this. We're just going to put just this on here. So honestly, as long as you keep it snapped in the center, from left to right, you can drag it anywhere in here to go ahead and get that engraved. I'm actually going to drag this down a bit so the tumbler will rotate before it starts engraving, since I have that masking tape on this side. I don't feel like taking the masking tape off, so we're just going to leave it on for the purposes of this video. So once we go ahead and get it on here, we're going to line it up with this green line. But before we hit go, there's a couple things that we need to do. One, we're going to set in our perimeter, which, as we talked about, was 256 millimeters. And then again, if you want to, you can do the autofocus. It looks like it went ahead and did that for me. I don't think it changed too much. And then refresh your image. And then now that you have it here, what we're going to talk about is settings. So I'm going to go into this. I don't know if this is a compound vector or not. It looks like it is. So if you have multiple vectors here together, I do recommend you compounding them. You can do that by just right-clicking and clicking Make Compound Vector. If it shows release, it means that it's already compounded and you don't need to change that. If you are doing a lot of text and you have stuff over each other, like if you had typed this out, what you're going to want to do is make sure anything cursive that overlaps is welded on the text objects, and then you're going to right click and choose Convert to Path. It's not going to show on here because mine is already a path. And then once you have them into a path, you can select everything and make it a compound vector. On the rotary mode, making sure that your vectors are compounded saves you a ton of time, because if not, the laser is going to try to go ahead and do each object individually, and sometimes it may end up turning that glass and rotating that glass back and forth to get that, instead of just doing it in one smooth motion and engraving from top to bottom of the glass. So now that we have that here, let's talk settings. What I've found that works really well on glass for me is 90 power, 190 speed, 500 lines per centimeter, and leave the frequency and engraving mode and everything alone. You don't need to change that. Bidirectional, of course, to save time. You don't need to add a crosshatch or anything crazy. So that's what I'm going to process this at. Before I process this, though, I am going to frame. So if you click the framing button, it's going to go ahead and rotate that glass around and then show you exactly where it's going to engrave. It looks like we framed okay, so let's go ahead and process, and we're going to get a clip of this processing, and then we'll jump back into results. All right, so once it's done processing, you can either just pop the chuck out like I showed you before, or since we're done now, we'll just go ahead and pull this one out. Final result. So let's get in pretty close here. As you can see, there's no uneven spots, no flaking like on the CO2. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps it up. So again, this is what we ended up with. And as you can see, it looks great. There's no chipping, there's no flaking like you get on a CO2. It's just really smooth, really great engraving, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. One thing I will note is this took about 20 minutes to engrave. So those settings, what you can do is likely just reduce that LPC a little bit and everything should be good to go. But if you're doing the 90, 190, 500, expect a pretty long engrave. That took about 15-20 minutes, I think. So check those settings, maybe test out a slower one. This was just my first setting for glass that I was using for things like the ornaments that I made, and some other glasses I was doing some smaller engraves on. So that's why I used it on these glasses here. But again, feel free to try your own, do a test grid. As always, drop your comments in the description below, ask any questions, and we'll get to them shortly. We are headed to CES this coming week, so it may be the week after before we get a chance to respond, but we will get back to you as soon as possible. And if you do check out our settings sheet, which will be linked down here in the description through our website, make sure that you go ahead and if you find a better setting, you drop it. There's a form inside the spreadsheet you can click to submit your own settings, and that way the community can take advantage of it. All right, well, thanks again for tuning in. Again, it was great to help you guys out. This is Eric with Marked and Made, and I will catch you guys in the next one.